it's nice when you see people taking on the tools or the advice that you've given them, and it actually makes an improvement in their life.
Welcome to Island Influencers, where we share stories of successful business owners, experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based or with influence in the Isle of Man. This podcast is brought to you by Thornton Chartered Financial Planners, because great financial planning has the power to change your life. Now here's your host, Sharon Sutton.
My island influencer this week is Haafizah Hoosen-Charles, an experienced parasitology, education, researcher and entrepreneur. She's the co-founder and MD of Lyph Lab, providing evidence-based advice and support based on health, wellness and nutrition. Haafizah's story starts in 2001 when she, along with her parents and little brother, moved from South Africa to the Isle of Man, and she was just 8 years old at the time. She talks to me about growing up on the island at this time with a small Muslim community. Haafizah explains how her life course took her off the island and in a completely different direction from events management in fashion design to completing her Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Sciences in Leicester and studying parasites in Spain. Haafizah is an incredibly brave and resilient woman who has faced some really challenging times. She encourages us to incorporate science and nature to be our best selves. This is a conversation not to be missed. Be inspired today by Haafizah Hoosen-Charles in episode 68 of Island Influencers.
Haafizah, thank you so much for coming in to St John's Mill and recording the first live podcast in 2022 with me. It's such a pleasure to meet you finally at last. We've been trying to get together a date, haven't we, for a while?
Yeah, it's been a few months, and it's great being here, and it's such a lovely place as well to just...
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, the idea of today's podcast is just to find out all about you, where you've come from, and go back in time, really, if that's okay. And
yeah, sure.
Yeah, if you could just, I mean, I did a bit of research about you, and I found you moved here when you were 8 years old. So
so I moved here when I was about 8 years old, and with my parents and my brother. We moved straight from South Africa, and obviously being a little kid, and they're saying, oh, we're going to move to an island, and me not having any knowledge of the fact that islands aren't the same everywhere all over the world.
Yes.
I thought, oh, well, we're going to be moving to a really sunny palm tree island, and we got here in March, and it was raining.
March.
Yeah. March 2001. It was pouring down, and I was like, I want to go back home now. I was like, it's too cold. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But no, it's been a great place to grow up. It's been really, really, I don't know. It's just been so different to when we speak to my family and my cousins and stuff back in South Africa, and just our childhood, and being able to have a really good, almost stress-free childhood, I guess. Just being able to go out and ride our bikes. And I think for my parents, that was really important for them.
It's a great place to bring up kids, isn't it?
Yeah. So we had a great time. I mean, there were obviously times as we got older, both my brother and I were just like, there's nothing to do on the Isle of Man. We need to go away. And so, when the opportunity to go away to uni arose, we both jumped on the next plane as fast as we could, and just kind of went and never came back for a while, I think.
Yeah. Well, so before that, I mean, so you're 8 years old, you arrived. What brought you here?
So my mum used to work for a company called Dimension Data, who had their operations on the Isle of Man. Yeah. And she got a transfer over. So it was mum's work that brought us over. Mum and dad had come and seen it the year before, and they kind of came in December time, and it was raining and horrible, and they came back to South Africa and they said, well, we're not moving. We're gonna miss it. We're gonna miss the country. We're gonna miss the family. It's very different. Obviously, there was a huge Muslim community in South Africa, and coming here in 2001, it wasn't very big or very evident. It's grown a lot since then. So they were adamant we weren't going to move, and then one day they just kind of both woke up and went, oh, we should move, and so we did.
I mean, you're 8, you got no vote, have you, really? That everyone listens to.
Yeah. I don't think me as an 8-year-old going, no, I don't want to go, would have made any difference, really. Okay. We did try and look at it on a map, and I was like, it's so small, we're not going to fit on. And my brother, bless him, he was about 3, I think. So,
oh gosh.
And he's a June baby, so when we moved, he had to kind of have like a crash course in nursery and going to school, because he was going to start school that September. Yeah, so we had about just under a year in nursery or preschool or whatever.
Yeah.
Because in South Africa, you don't start school until you're about 5.
Okay. Yeah, that's about the US as well, I think.
Yeah, 5, and then actual like year 1 or grade 1 there is about 7. So it was very different. He had to kind of crash course in playing with other kids and stuff. So
yeah, well, I'm really interested to hear how you've gone on into your career to what the sort of pathway that you followed, because which high school did you go to?
So I went to Ballycameen. It was really, really good. The teachers and especially the sixth form staff, they were really encouraging, and they were really supportive. They kind of identified skills and passions in me that I didn't realise that I had.
Okay, like what?
So kind of, well, essentially my love for science and just that analytical, logical side of me. So before that, I was all geared up to go and do event management with fashion design, which is a completely different field career. It's just, completely different to where I am and what I'm doing. I had the head of sixth form at the time. He sat down with me and he was like, "Are you sure this is what you want to do? You really seem to enjoy these other things."
So what sort of sciences were you doing?
So I was never a physics person. I didn't really like physics. I think it was just too much maths. I was never a maths physics person, but I really liked biology and I really liked chemistry to help me understand the biology, not so much as chemistry by itself. Mm-hmm. And so when I took my A-levels, I did economics and I did English literature and chemistry and biology, which seems like a random mix, and it probably was, but it kind of gave me the base that I needed should I want to go into science.
Yes.
But also it gave me that, like, I really enjoyed English literature and just having that creative side of me still there.
Yes.
And economics was, I don't know, like that came out of left field. I think I just don't know where that came from, but it was good. I learned some skills and I didn't carry it on as I went, but
handy for running your own business.
Well, I don't know if I learned as much as that. Yeah. I've definitely learned a lot about running a business in the last year.
Yes, I'm sure you have. So you went to university then on the basis of deciding that you wanted to go down the science path?
Yes, so that's kind of how, so I changed kind of my whole outlook of where I wanted to be in the future, and decided that I wanted to go down the science route and I wanted to do something to do with human biology, and really being able to use science in not necessarily a medical way, but being able to help people using science.
Right.
So I went on to do Biomedical Science, which is the degree you have to do when you want to work in the path lab, like the lab in the hospital.
Yes.
So I was fortunate enough to go to De Montfort University in Leicester, and that was a huge change. Again, kind of going from the Isle of Man to Leicester, it was a very big change. It was a huge culture shock.
I'm sure.
And then obviously living on your own and kind of navigating all of that. But it was really good. I think it was the best decision for me, and I think it was the right decision for me at that time. Yeah. It wasn't too big a city. It was just enough for me to be able to get used to. Yeah, so I went and did Biomedical Science, and then we were given the option to do a placement year. So I contacted Nobles and asked, can I do my placement here? And they said, well,
how about it?
And they said, well, we'd not had a student in a while, and they hadn't done it in a while, as in they'd had people that had graduated and come and done their training there, but not while they were still studying. So I think the way that came about was the head of the lab at that point went to Ballycameen and did a talk about the lab, kind of getting people more interested.
Sure. And
my brother was at Ballycameen at the time, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to take your email down in case my sister wants to ever come back and do it." So,
what good brother. He must be really missing you.
I know. I don't know if he'd be so happy that he did that now. But, so we had a chat, and I kind of came back when I was back on Ireland and met them, and we set up a way that I was actually able to come and do my training here. So I finished my portfolio over here and I got to go around. It was actually a really good experience, especially when talking with all my friends back at uni. They had to go. In the UK, they went to a lab where it was a very specialist lab. So they either went to hematology or biochemistry or microbiology, and they stayed there for the entire year. Whereas over here, I was quite lucky as I started off in microbiology, and then I got to go around everywhere. and experience, I think it was 6 weeks in everywhere, and just kind of have an idea of what was actually done day to day and how it worked.
And was that specially designed for you?
Well, I think it was a program that they had done. They just hadn't had a student in a while.
And are they still doing it now, do you know?
Yeah. The last time I was there, they were still doing it, so they were still getting students in, and that was really good. It was quite nice to see that actually it worked the first time, and they were getting their skills back on the island.
It's kind of like a full-on training hospital in some respects.
Yeah, it was, and it was really good because they hadn't done it for a while. It was very much the things that I had a really good supervisor who was based in microbiology, and she said, well, she'll be there to guide me, but if there's anything I want to do and anything I'm really interested in, I can just approach someone and kind of go for it and have that experience. And so I got to go around all of the different departments, work in all of the different departments, and then I had the option to split 8 weeks between 2 different departments or go back in one department for 8 weeks. So I went back to microbiology, which was, before I started the training, I was convinced I was never going to go into microbiology. It was horrible and I didn't like it. I didn't like the theory. Yeah. And then I started working at the hospital and I went back into it, and then went on to do research in microbiology and parasitology.
Goodness.
So
Perception is reality, right? Brilliant. Oh, that's good. So you went then had to go back to De Montfort to finish your degree off. Yeah. And then what happened?
So went back to De Montfort, finished off my degree, applied to do a PhD. Yeah. And that was in infectious diseases and parasitology. So it was a subset of microbiology. And that was really interesting. I got some great opportunities from that. I got to travel and do conferences. So I got to, I think it was 4 months into my studying, and my supervisor was like, oh, well, you're submitting for a conference. And I was like, well, with what? I've done nothing. It's been 4 years. I've been trying to get my head around how everything works. And he was like, well, try and get some data. We want you to go to this conference. And it was in Scotland at the time. And it was an early careers conference. So it was a lot of students. And it was a great way to kind of start off and get an idea of what a conference is. And it was, my God, it was daunting. Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, if it's anything like financial services, the medical profession, seemingly, or the scientific community, appears to be a lot of men.
Yeah. It was. It really, really was. And there was another conference that I remember doing. It was the British Society for Parasitology. Oh. I was asked. So we had to submit a piece of research, and I was asked to come and do a presentation. And I remember walking in, and there was one of 8 women, and there's about 100 and 150 people, one of 5 non-white people.
Oh gosh.
And the other one, and another one was a colleague of mine that I came with. Yes. And it was really funny. I remember sitting down, and so the presenters didn't have like a special place to sit or anything. You just kind of sat in the audience. There was a few men at the end of the bench, and I had to kind of get out, and I remember saying, oh, excuse me, I need to get out because I need to go up. And they were like, oh no, you'll really want to watch this next guy, like his research sounds amazing and it sounds really, really good, and you won't want to miss it. And I just had to kind of say to him,
that's me.
It's me. I need to kind of go up and present. And his face was just a bit like, oh God,
how amazing.
And so that's probably one of my treasured memories of just his face and his jaw dropping and him not realizing who it was. And
not only are you not a bloke, but you're going to be getting up there and telling him what he needs to know.
Yeah, and then at the end he just avoided me and never
Oh, that's a shame. Says more about him than it does about you.
Yeah, so I think that was one of the conferences where at the end of it I was just like, oh God, I'm so tired. I just want to go home and go to sleep, because it was a lot of not just talking about the research, not just talking about what I'm doing and the plans. It was also combating all of these different ideas that people had of you and about who should be in that field. And so there was a lot of combating. There was a lot of conversations with people that were in parasitology because their fathers and grandfathers were in parasitology and had founded many things when they went off to different countries. And so it was a lot of a lot of emotive topics that were coming up at this one conference. So, but it's a great experience. I think I would still do it again. Yeah, definitely. just to see the look in his face,
and the ratio. The ratio might have changed. You never know.
Yeah.
If you can see it, you can be it, right?
Yeah. Hopefully, I hope it has.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that is the case. So, what happened after you'd done these scientific conferences, and did you go and do a master's? Because I think I read that you're studying for a PhD right now.
Well, I was studying for a PhD, and so lots of stuff happened during my PhD, and it had to change. We couldn't get the kind of data that we were looking for, and so it had to change. And then in, I want to say 2018, so I was able to, I went off and I was able to live in Spain for a few months and be trained by them, and they have like a really great scientific parasitology industry field.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's really good. They're one of probably the best in Europe.
For their research facilities and stuff like that.
Yeah, for the research they do, and as well for the methods that they do. They're quite innovative in terms of methods of research and looking for things. And so it was really good to be able to live out there and be trained. And obviously living in Spain for 3 or 4 months wasn't bad. It was all right. It was a change from Leicester, but it was great. Yeah. So when I came back from that, then I kind of went back to uni and kept going with just doing the research and trying to get papers out and get published, and while you're doing all of your other stuff. And then in 2018, I was assaulted in the street. So
where?
In Leicester. Yeah.
Gosh.
So it was racially motivated, and I was assaulted in the street, and that had a real bad impact on my health.
Sure.
And
gosh, I'm so sorry.
Just it's fine. It's one of those, it's not just one of those things that happens, but it's one of those things that has happened to me, and thankfully I've come out the other end a lot stronger, and I didn't realize what an impact it actually had on not just my physical health but my mental health as well. And I really didn't deal with any of that for quite a long time.
Right.
It would have been months and months until I actually thought, oh well, I need to deal with this, whether or not it was the physical side or the mental side of it. I just pushed it down and kind of wanted to keep working, but it had such a huge impact on me that every time I decided to go towards, doing my PhD work or anything like that, it really kind of sent me into spirals. And I realized that actually doing my PhD wasn't what was making me happy anymore.
Oh, right.
And so after lots of thinking and lots of discussions, I made the decision to leave my PhD. I probably had... might seem like a silly decision from the outside, because I probably had about a year left, and so it would have seemed like a good decision, or the best decision to just stick it out for that year. But mentally, I knew I wouldn't have been able to manage.
Is it something you can pick up again at some point? Or
yeah. So it's really good because my supervisors were really great, and they all understood where I was coming from and how I'd come to that decision, and how I'd made that decision, and kind of how difficult it was for me. They could all pick up on the fact that I wasn't the same person that started, and not necessarily in a good way, but it had really had such a massive impact on me. And it was a really big turning point in my life. And I think I just thought, well, what do I want to do in the future? And is this type of research what's making me happy, or is it something else? And so I had a real big think about it, spoke to my partner about it, spoke to my parents, kind of got their opinion. And I think with my family, what's really great, and with my friends, is that they're all really supportive. They're not afraid to say their opinion. So if they think I'm making a stupid decision, they will make it known that they think I'm making a stupid decision. But at the end of the day, it is my decision to make, should I want to make it. What was really great is that they all knew how difficult coming to this conclusion was for me, and that it wouldn't have been a decision that I would have made lightly, or something I would have thought about lightly, or anything like that. So it was a lot of pros and con lists, a lot of weighing up where I want to be, what I want to do, what is my ultimate goal. So I made the decision to leave. And honestly, for me, for my mental health, I think that was probably the best decision. The minute I handed in my withdrawal, I felt like I had this huge weight off my shoulder, and I could focus on things that I really wanted to do. And I realized that one of the things I really wanted to do was set up my own business to be able to help people that just didn't understand, knew that there was something maybe wrong health-wise with them, whether or not it was wellness or if it was their physical health or anything like that, but just weren't getting the answers that they wanted from traditional healthcare settings. And so I just wanted to be able to give people the tools to be able to do that for themselves. And that was where I kind of realised that's what I'm really passionate about. And then knew I still wanted to carry on studying. Knew that I'm not ready to stop education yet. I don't think I'll ever be ready to not be in education.
No, good. It's good to know.
Yeah, I think I'm just one of those people that will keep going. So I did a diploma in nutrition and a diploma in women's health, then applied to do the mental health nursing degree through UCM and Chester University.
Yes.
And I got on that, so I'm on that now.
Oh my word.
So it's really great. It's really good. And the course has been amazing. And I've learned so much so far. And I think I've learned so much about not just how important mental health is, but as well how important it is to look at the link between mental and physical health and how you can't really have one without the other. And also just how much pressure the NHS is under, because it just seems insane that it just seems absolutely crazy that the NHS is under so much pressure. And I can understand where it's come from, but you kind of like, there's not, they just don't have the funding or the staff or anything to be able to do it. And part of some of the services we offer is as that option to, we offer physical health testing and nutrition advice and kind of wellness tools and how to just live a life that is more in line with you taking back control over your life. So we've had clients come in and say they've had, one of the things that has been on my mind recently is a lot of women coming in and saying that they've been to the doctor or whatever because they think they were in menopause and then they've just been put on HRT and not been tested for years. Or
yes,
just
I'm sure it sounds a lot of familiar to a lot of women.
just
of my age.
And so we've done testing for them, and they've actually had to go back to the doctor and say, well, my dose isn't right of what you've got me on. And we've had some good success stories where people have gone back to their GP and said, we've had this test, it's not right, and the GP's gone, oh well, we should adjust your dose, and after they've done that actually felt really a lot better, and it's actually been working a lot more. So it's nice when you see people taking on the tools or the advice that you've given them, and it actually makes an improvement in their life. And it's kind of that journey that I never really got to see when I worked in the lab. So even if we got a specimen in and we got a sample in and you had all of the patient history or the clinical history or anything like that, you never really got to see whether or not the person got better or improved. But I get to see that now with the work I'm doing, and it's great. It's really, really fun, and it's really motivating and inspiring. It's difficult and it's hard. But it's good. It's all good.
Oh, that's great. So thank you. I mean, that's a great story. So you set up now Lyph Lab, and that's been, is that how I said it?
So it's Lyph. It's like a play on
Lyph
Lab.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So it's spelled Lyph, Lyph Lab.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was to do with lymphs. I don't know why. But
a lot of people that I think it autocorrects to Lyph Lab.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was like, no. But
Lyph Lab is great. Get that. That's been just, I saw on Facebook that you're
we're turning a year.
That's great.
The first year has been, it started off as a little seed and a little idea, and I thought, well, let's just go for it. Let's set up the company, let's do what we can, and it kind of just went from there. And then it was a lot of learning the business side of it and dealing with all of that, which is a whole different world.
It is absolutely.
But I was quite lucky in the sense that my dad has got his own company, so
right, okay.
He gave me a lot of advice, and he had given me a lot of kind of guidance and support along the way. He'd give me a lot of advice, and I could either take it or leave it. And go whichever way.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Having the information and then being able to decide based on
whether or not it's going to, because he's in the tech sector, so based on whether or not it's going to work for what I want. But I think without kind of that guidance, I would have found it even more difficult. And so anyone that's set up a business by themselves and kind of got it going and done anything, will know it's just a bit of a nightmare.
It's a learning process, isn't it?
It is. And I don't think you'll ever feel like you know enough.
No, okay. No, well, lifelong learning, I think you've already said it.
Yeah.
So, Well, okay, well, if it's probably a good point to ask you then, since you were talking about your dad giving you advice. But if you don't mind me asking, what was your earliest memory of money? I mean, how was money growing up? Why did you learn your money skills now?
Well, I think I learnt them from my parents. When we were growing up, my parents never really involved us in money decisions. It was always their kind of remit in the family role, but we always learned how to manage money, and we always learned like the value of it. So even when we were kids, to kind of get pocket money, we wouldn't just get pocket money. I remember one of my friends saying they got pocket money, and I went home and I asked my mum and dad, like, why don't I get pocket money? And my dad was like, we're not giving you money for no reason. Like, it's not, we're just, if you want it, we'll, if you it was my job to vacuum the stairs. I remember vacuuming the stairs, and that would kind of meant that I knew you'd have to work for everything you got. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of instilled in us, both my brother and I, from quite a young age. And like, not in a mean way, but just in a way of growing up with knowing that actually you have a responsibility which can lead to money. It's not just it's very rarely something that's just given to you or handed to you. Sure. But also you then have a responsibility of what you want to do with that money. So we were always allowed to make our own decisions. So how we wanted to spend it. It was never, this goes somewhere and you have to spend it on this, and you're not allowed to buy sweets or books or whatever it was, or games or anything like that. It was, we then had to make the decision. Okay. And I think it was just that learning when we were quite early about it. My mum's an accountant, so so it was very much, she was balancing the books. So she was kind of in charge of the money. Did
you learn how to save? Did you put some aside? Or?
Well, I did, but then I think I went to uni and I don't think I got very good at it.
Wow. Well, this is a question. Did you come out with any student debt?
No. Well, I did, because when I went on to do with my PhD, the Isle of Man had changed the rules about how fees were paid. Yeah. And stuff like that. But when I was going to uni, so I had initially budgeted to go to London, and then I didn't get into my first choice that I wanted to go to in London. And I went to Leicester, so I was lucky that I'd budgeted for London because it was a lot cheaper and a lot more left over.
Yeah. But you had a budget, that's the important thing.
Yeah. So, and, I had jobs while I was in school and kind of just kept going. So even...
More than just doing vacuuming the stairs.
Yeah, more than just doing the stairs or cleaning the bathroom. I had was Costa and Next, I think.
Yes.
Okay. So as soon as I could work, I kind of got jobs, and just having that freedom, that financial freedom of going, I don't really need to ask my parents for money, or I don't really need to ask if I can have something or do this. I have the finances to do it myself. I mean, it wasn't much, and probably wouldn't be able to survive on it now, I don't think, but
baby steps, right?
So it was a great way to learn. And then my partner, he is very, very good at saving. So I feel like he's really good at it, and I don't maybe have to be as much. So
as long as you manage it between you.
Yeah. So we have quite, we share the responsibility, but he does take the saving bit more seriously than I do.
So of all the things you've done throughout your life up to now, and I think you started to describe it before really, but what's given you the most fulfillment from a personal and a business point of view?
I think it's that watching someone's journey, watching their health journey. I think that, especially where I am in life at the moment, and the person I am now is very different to the person I was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah. And just watching that journey of someone identifying something within themselves and knowing that actually they want to make changes for the better in their life, whatever that is. Obviously, I'm focusing on health, and they want to make changes that are better for their health, and seeing their journey and seeing them have a really good day where maybe they weren't in as much pain, or maybe they had a symptom that went away that we managed together, and just seeing that, I think, is really amazing.
Do you think what happened to you, do you think that has
100%?
Yeah,
100%. And I know that even my decision to kind of go into mental health nursing and even do that and learn about that was really impacted by not just what happened to me, but the care that I received afterwards by it. And
talk about turning something of such extreme adversity into a positive.
It wasn't instant.
You should be really proud of yourself.
Thank you. It wasn't an instant turnaround. There were lots of ups and lots of downs.
Yeah.
It did really affect lots of different parts of my life in ways that I know if I'd not gone through that, it wouldn't have done.
No.
And I may be on a completely different path now. So the fact that I love what I'm doing and really enjoying the path that I'm on at the moment, I'm in a way grateful that I came out of it. I obviously wish it didn't happen.
Yes.
And I don't wish it to happen to anyone ever, because it's a horrible thing to experience. But just having holding on to that idea that I can come out the end of it, and kind of didn't give me, it made me scared to do things like really easy, simple things like walk out into the street. But it gave me courage that, well, I've been through that and nothing will be worse than that.
Sure.
So I don't feel as scared to make big decisions or leaps or jumps anymore, which is good.
It's interesting that you came back and you set your business up in the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
So for any existing or even aspiring entrepreneurs, what would be your number one tip in setting up a business?
Know what solution you're providing. Know what your services are, and know your worth. So understand actually the value of what your business is going to give people, because I think that we all have these great ideas, and we all think that we've got these really good ideas that could turn into something really great, and most of the time they can, and most of the time they do. But there's also this moment where there's going to be a lot of times where you feel like you've just made the biggest mistake.
Well, yeah, especially when you've got financial implications of it, and a lot riding on a new business, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you just feel like, well, what's the point? There's so much more that I have to do.
Yeah,
instead of, I left a job that I had an income in, and now I'm going into something that I don't. It's
a big leap, isn't it? Yeah.
And you'll maybe have to work a second job alongside it, which is not something you really think about. You think, oh, I'm going to set up my business and I'll be fine. I'll be earning as much as I was earning before, and that's not always the case straight away.
So make sure you've got a decent business plan, basically.
Have a decent business plan. And we didn't really have like a traditional business plan. The templates that I saw for business plans didn't really fit with how I thought. So it was more of a projection of what I wanted rather than a step-by-step idea.
So did you go and do the course that they put on for aspiring business?
So I'm actually doing that come April, I think.
Oh, okay.
Is it micro business?
Oh, right. So you've already set your business up and you're going to do it now. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if what you've done, if there's any possibility for sharing that with possible ways to improve. There's always.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be. I think there's always a lot of learning that can happen.
Yeah.
And it's changing. And I think that's really. Yeah. I know, especially with COVID and everything.
And technology and
maybe the traditional business models aren't going to suit everyone going forward in the future, and not going to suit really where people want to be, and what they want to do, and kind of have that. Yeah. It's not the same as it was even 5 or 10 years ago. Setting up a business is very different.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Yeah. And kind of setting up just this idea of what you want, what it means to have a successful business is changing in people's minds. And I think that I'm hoping that the course brings some of that in.
You'll have to let me know.
But yeah, I will do.
Okay, great. So what do you actually do to relax? When you're, to keep your life in balance?
To keep my life in balance? Well...
Sound like you love what you do.
Yeah, I do love what I do. So sometimes I'll get home and I'll read medical journals, which I know doesn't sound like I'm keeping my life in balance, but it does. But it is, because it's not always relevant to my work. It's just other things that I really enjoy. I would say social media, although that's probably not a very good thing. I just mindlessly scroll on Instagram, which does relax me, but then it also kind of makes me think, well, I should be there and I'm here and I should be there. So it maybe is not the most relaxing thing, but I love just kind of having downtime with my partner, spending it with family and friends, and just the stuff that I don't know if I took it for granted pre-COVID, but pandemic, everything was just about being busy and being go, go, go all of the time. And then the whole entire world was just kind of forced to stop and not do that anymore. And I think I really enjoyed, especially that first lockdown that we went into, I really enjoyed just being able to spend time with my family and it not be a limited amount of time. I mean, maybe it was too much time. I don't know. Maybe we were all around each other too much, too often. But yeah, and just not having like a couple of hours a week or something, not having that time limit on it, and just being able to have fun and kind of talk about things, and just, I think it brought our family a lot closer. And that we were always a close family anyway, but with obviously my mum and dad being on the island and me being away for so long, and my brother was away at uni and him moving back and me moving back, it was really nice to kind of have that family unit back together again, which hadn't been.
Yeah, and it's nice that you all decided to come back. So many people go off to university and you never see them again.
It was never my plan. It was never my plan to come back.
Especially what you said about you and your brother. Oh, where can we go?
Yeah. So I don't think it was really my brother's plan to come back either, but the way it happened, we just did. And yeah, it's worked out really well. I think it's so different from when I left. Yeah. But then there are things that still are exactly the same and haven't changed. Yeah, I know.
No. So do you do anything else outside of work life?
So I haven't been horse riding in a really, really long time, although that's something that I enjoy. It was something that had to take a bit of a backseat when I hurt, when I got assaulted, because it really impacted my back, so I couldn't go up and down basically on a horse, and it was really not great. And gym as well was something that I absolutely loved doing. So exercise for me is something that's really, really important, and I try and get as much in. It's kind of like a bit of me time and alone time, where I can go to a gym and I can exercise, but I don't feel the same thing as when I do it when I'm in my own space, and I just I've changed the exercises that I do as well. So I was a lot more into strength training, whereas now I do a lot more cardio, try and get cardio bit up. I think after COVID happening and everyone having respiratory issues, I was just a bit concerned about not being able to breathe. And so I really kind of wanted to get that back up, and a lot more yoga and more relaxing exercises rather than go. So I don't know if that's going to change.
Well, that's great. It's a good start, isn't it? Whatever. So what do you think about the best things are about living in the Isle of Man?
I think you just feel safe on the Isle of Man. I think that's really nice. It's something that I think growing up and living here we maybe take for granted. We don't realise that there's lots of places that we maybe won't feel as safe, and there's a sense of feeling at home when you come back and nothing's really changed. But then it's also great to see the progress. So like the Muslim community, for example, growing and being able to see how many people there are, and just seeing that change has been really nice, and seeing all of the different types of cultures that are coming onto the island.
There's some great events. There's been some great events, haven't there? The Foods of the World and things like that.
Yeah, like Foods of the World have been really great. I volunteer for a charity called POCIOM, and
People of Colour.
Yeah, we put on Culture Fest, and that was really nice.
Yeah, that's lovely.
That was last year, and that was again kind of celebrating all of the different cultures.
Is it going to be on again this year?
I'm not sure. I don't know. We haven't. I think so. I think we want it to be an annual thing. Yeah. I think last year everyone was just so tired after it. Yeah. It was a lot of planning.
Sounds like a great event.
Yeah, it was. It was really, really good, and everyone really enjoyed themselves.
Good. So what are the main challenges then that the island faces?
I think it
still seems a very white place. So,
So I think just truly accepting different cultures as part of the Manx culture.
Yes.
So as not being an other culture, but as part of being on the Isle of Man and being part of that Manx fabric, I think is a challenge that we still have.
Yes, I noticed that in my research, I found that you'd studied and got a fair bit of social media abuse from and in the street you said
yes, in the street.
when you stood for MLC, and that's just
so
incredible to think that there's some prehistoric views out there still. It's incredible.
And it's it's one of those things that it's all online now. It's never going to go away.
No, is it?
And so you have to very actively tell yourself not to focus on it, and kind of not to. That's not what everyone thinks, but it's hard when it's the loudest opinions.
Well, it's a silent majority, though, isn't it? Sometimes I think people forget. Most people wouldn't.
Yeah, and
wouldn't make it a difference. It's there's no difference. It's anyway. I apologise for the white community and their.
And I think one of the other challenges maybe on the Isle of Man is just being able to. I think we're in a great position to be able to be a step ahead of places, but we just don't like change.
No,
we just don't. As an island and as a community, I just don't think we. I think we're really scared of change and just doing something that maybe hasn't 100% worked. I don't know. We're like looking for places that have done something and done something really well, and then we'll kind of piggyback off that or take those ideas and use it. And that's fine in certain cases. But in a lot of situations, I think that we could actually be ahead of things.
Have our own blueprint.
Yeah. And be the people that, be the place that people look at for that example of, oh, well, they did it in a completely different way, we should do it. And we have the freedom to be able to do that. And I think one of the examples would be like medical research.
Yes.
We don't do research. We don't have a very big research. I don't know how to explain it, but we don't do a lot of really interesting like medical research with our community. We don't include it in studies. We don't. What we have, which is great, is that we have one hospital that every patient essentially has to go through.
Is that or Ramsey?
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's still connected. It's still,
of course.
They still have to kind of go through the main hub. And I don't think we take advantage of that as much because we can actually capture so much of data just from our hospital. And just from our healthcare systems, but we don't do it. We can capture the data of every single one of our residents, and we just don't do it.
Gosh.
But no place in the UK doesn't have that, because you have county hospitals and you have different, certain hospitals that deal with different things, whereas our Nobles is the one that is your first point of call essentially for everything that you need to deal with.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, and we just don't.
Have you ever pointed that out to anyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I used to work for government in research and development, that was one of the things that we were really trying to push forward, to say that actually we have the capacity to be able to capture all of this data, and we just don't. We just don't do it. We just don't do it enough. We don't capture what we're doing, and we don't capture kind of. And then we try and look at, well, how is it improved? But we don't have the baseline data for anything, which is hard.
It is, yeah. I think we've got as far as a census, haven't we? Pretty much. Very interesting. Okay, so that sounds a definite solution, and not a solution, but an opportunity that somebody could look at. As far as your business goes, I mean, what have you got planned next for it? What's coming up, and what over the longer term? What would you like to see?
So we started off as a nutrition business. That was kind of where we were focused, and then went into more health testing. So we offer finger prick blood tests.
Yes,
that we
do allergy tests, don't you?
Yeah, so we do allergy tests, we do hormone tests, any tests basically. So your general, if you just feel like something's not right, you're not exactly sure where it is, we can test kind of your cholesterol, your sugar, your liver, kidneys, all of that stuff. All of that kind of thing, and we use NHS accredited labs across in the UK, so they analyse our results for us, and then based off the result of that, we give you kind of a lifestyle change plan about what you should be doing, where you should be making changes, what you should be keeping the same, whether or not it's food wise or diet wise, or it's exercise, or it's just learning different de-stressing techniques, or learning how to manage stress, or how to approach certain things. So that kind of is now the bulk of what we do. Do you work with anybody locally? Do you sort of refer people on? Yeah, so we work with a few nutritionists locally. We've got a partnership coming up with the King Spa as well to do some stuff with them. We work with Allergy Village in terms of the allergy testing, because they were looking for someone that was able to do that, and someone obviously that had the knowledge to then be able to, because we get given the results, but if you just give someone results of a blood test, they're not going to know what to do with it.
What's that? What's an albumin level?
Yeah,
serotonin. What is that?
Exactly. It's like it's not going to make any sense.
Yeah.
So, so we always offer kind of a service to come in and consult and chat about, well, actually, what does it mean, and just advice about. Sometimes you think you're making really healthy decisions, but actually, they're not. They're not unhealthy. They're just not what you need.
Do you think the food industry has a lot to answer for?
Yeah, I think more than the food industry, I think the diet culture has a lot to kind of answer for, because...
not mentioning any particular brands.
No, not mentioning any particular brands, but I think this idea of living life on diets and
low fat.
Yeah, and having these like fad diets that come in, and suddenly this is going to be really good, and all you have to do is cut out every single thing you have ever enjoyed eating, and so I think that actually has had a massive impact on people's life, and how they view their own eating habits.
I suppose their motivation as well, if they've tried and they've failed at certain things.
And as well, a lot of these things aren't long term, and they're not sustainable, so they're really good for that 2-3 months that you're doing it, but then the minute you stop, one, you've probably developed a bunch of different other health conditions, that because your body is not getting everything it needs, it's not getting the nutrients that it needs, it's not getting everything it needs to survive, the vitamins, the electrolytes, anything like that. And then as well, this idea of taking supplements and taking vitamins, and while I do agree that they're needed, we always say, well, why don't you have a test to see if you actually need to take what you're taking? Because if you don't, your body can't absorb it.
That's a waste of money.
Yeah.
As much as anything.
It's if you're not low in something and if you don't need it, your body is not going to absorb it, and it's not going to make you it's not going to do anything to improve. It's, it may be having a placebo effect on you and thinking, well,
I get that. But I mean, there's you can have a reading, like, for example, hormones, you can have a reading one day and it's completely different. Like
the next day. And it's just,
So what do you do about that? Do you have a sort of follow-up program that?
Yeah, so we offer follow-up programs with all of them. So if you're coming in because you're kind of looking at your hormone levels and you have a specific thing that you're concerned about. So I've had people come in that are concerned because their periods are irregular, and they want to look at their hormone levels, and so we look at that over a few months rather than just
and
one.
It's more in detail than the NHS would do, I guess.
Because it's specific.
You're paying for it.
It is specific, and then as well, you don't just get the blood test, but you get the results. You get access to a doctor's report, a GP's report from the UK, and you get access to our kind of bank of evidence-based information on what things to try to fix it, to combat it, because the issue is that not everyone is going to be the same. So even
we're our own little scientific experiment, aren't we?
Exactly. So even if someone has low hormones, and they're if two people have the exact same low hormones, just because one change has worked for someone doesn't mean it's going to work for the other person, because there's a whole load of other things going on in their body as well, that have to be taken into account. And I think that what we haven't been doing kind of in primary healthcare settings is looking at us as a whole, as a person. It's always been an isolated incident, and
holistic health, who thought?
I know.
Great. That sounds wonderful. Thank you for telling me all about that. There's just a few quick-fire questions that our listeners always enjoy answers to. Just to finish off quickly.
Oh, gosh.
Any books that you've read recently that you did mention medical journals? Sources of inspiration, self-development, just anything you've read recently.
Kind of self-development stuff. I don't really read them in books because I find I don't really pay attention when I do them in books. So I like podcasts. And the one that I'm really into at the minute is one from America, and it's called Earn Your Leisure.
Right.
And that is just two guys talking about loads of different things, and it's really interesting to just get a really good basis of lots of stuff that's going on in the world at the moment, and how to, I don't know, where to spend your time if you want to kind of have a rich and fulfilled life, and you know, different areas that maybe you don't want to become an expert in, but you just want to know a little bit more about. And I like learning about all of the different things. So that's a podcast that I listen to. Books that I've read, I like my reading to be kind of relaxing. So I don't necessarily want to, if it's medical journals or stuff like that and I'm learning it educationally, then that's fine. But if I'm sitting down with a good book, I like to be able to escape to somewhere. And the most recent book that I read that I really loved was called The Reading List, and it was by, I think it's Sarah Adams. I'm not sure. I'll get who it is.
Yeah, if you would. It's my turn to pick for book club next time, so I need a recommendation.
And it's about this girl who doesn't like reading but ends up getting a job in a library, and finds a reading list of all of these classic books that she needs to read, and she makes friends with an older gentleman who's just lost his wife, and it's just a really lovely, it just takes you away and just escapes, and it's a bit emotional, and there's, I think in the first 2 chapters I cried about twice, but it was nice. It was good, and yeah. That was a really good book.
Yeah, no, thanks for the recommendation. Great. What's your favourite quote? Do you have one?
Well, see, I was thinking about this and I was like, I don't know if I have a favourite quote, but a quote that sticks with me, and it's not going to be word for word, but it's by Nelson Mandela, and it's about not judging on successes, but on how many times someone has been knocked down and picked themselves back up again.
Right.
And that's obviously not the exact word of it. He said it much more eloquently, I'm sure.
But see, it's a sentiment, and I get what you mean.
And I think that obviously with everything I've been through, that's something that really resonates.
Yes, and is he somebody that you really inspired you? Or
yeah, it is. Especially coming from South Africa and kind of growing up with him as an influence, and his ethos and his philosophy and his just approach to life. It's very, I think, it's someone that you just instantly find inspirational.
Do you have somebody who inspires you? Who's still around that you look to?
I really, really love Amal Clooney. I find her incredibly inspirational. I think that she is, obviously now she's famous because she's married to George Clooney, but as a person in her own right, she is just incredible in some of the stuff that she's done. Yes. And her ability to work and focus and kind of try these really difficult cases and get involved in these really, she's a human rights lawyer. Yes. And to get involved in these really horrific cases and win, stand her ground and win and be able to do that in such a, I don't know, I just love her. I think she's someone that I'm really inspired by.
Yeah, well, look, I've loved having you on today. Thank you so much, Haafizah, for coming in. Where can people go to learn all about you and Lyph Lab, and where's the best places?
So we've got our social media, which is Facebook and Instagram. Yes. So that's at Lyph Lab, right? And that's LYPHLAB. But we've also got our website, which is www.lyphlab.com.
Lovely. It's a nice website. You've got some lovely photographs on there.
Oh, thank you.
Much. Appreciated that. Well, okay. Well, thank you so much for today, and thanks for your help in this in the Island Influencers series and project.
It's been great to be on, and it's been great to chat to you.
Thank you.